Good afternoon, everyone. We'll let a couple people pop in here. You can see some people popping in the chat now. All right, I'll go ahead and start introductions. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the Berkelee Summer Programs team. My name is Angel, and I'll be serving as today's host. We'll be doing an overview of the next steps for incoming students registered for the Aspire 5-week music performance intensive. And we're going to go ahead and give a moment to everyone to get settled. I think it looks like there's a lot of people joining in, and people will keep on joining in. So we'll get the ball rolling. If anyone's just joining, again, this webinar is on next steps for incoming students registered for the Aspire program, specifically what to expect at program check-in. And while we wait for anybody who might have any specific questions for the team, please feel free to use the question and answer feature or the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit questions to our team. We'll have a dedicated time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions, and we do have some team members behind the scenes ready right now to answer any inquiries as they come in throughout the course of the webinar. As a reminder, this webinar's topic is for our Aspire program. If you are joining us in hopes of receiving more specific information regarding our shorter summer programs, yesterday we actually held a webinar that focused on our July programs. To request a recording of that webinar, you can route to our summer programs events page and follow the registration steps listed there. And we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to do some introductions now. My name is Angel Camillo. I am your webinar host for today's session, and I am a summer programs advisor. And today we are joined by our Associate Director of Summer Programs, Student Life, Lee Denton-Smith, our Senior Summer Programs Enrollment Manager, Kathleen O'Connell, our Associate Director of Summer Programs, Bill Dunphy, and as well as one of our 3 Aspire music performance program directors, Vesela Stoyanova. Again, for anyone who might have specific questions regarding the next steps for your program, or any aspects of the check-in process as well, please feel free to use the question and answer feature at the bottom of the screen, and we will also have a dedicated time to answering your questions at the end of the webinar. And as a quick note, this will be recorded and shared next week. If you don't have if there's any questions that weren't answered during the course of this webinar, please email us at summer@berkelee.edu. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Kathleen.
Great, thank you, Angel. So in today's webinar, we'll be talking about the different items that you need to complete between now and when you arrive on campus for the Aspire 5-week program. We've organized the requirements into a few different broad categories, which are payment and housing, health and safety, and program preparation. You may be at various stages of completing these, but our hope is that at the end of this webinar, at the very least, you have a good understanding of what's left to do prior to the program in the event that you haven't yet been able to address all of them. Regardless of where you are in terms of completing these, we'd encourage you to stick around, of course, during the webinar to hear about each of them, and then make sure to tune into the Q&A portion, because I'm sure that things will come up that aren't accounted for in these slides, but are still worthy of discussion. Great. So one of your next steps prior to the program, if you haven't done so already, is to complete any remaining payments that you need to make. Making payment for tuition and housing, if applicable, is the mechanism by which you secure your space. We do consider enrollment and housing reservations on a first-come, first-served basis. In terms of tuition payment, participants for Aspire 5-week make their payment by logging in to apply.berkelee.edu, clicking on the payment tab. Sometimes we get questions if partial payments are allowed. The answer for this program specifically is yes, but important to note that we don't consider a student space to be secured unless payment in full has been received. So working on getting the outstanding balance on your account down to zero, again, if you haven't done so already, is of the utmost importance leading into the program. In terms of on-campus housing, if you're 15 or older, on or after the first day of the program, this is requested separately after registration. It's done by submitting the housing contract or housing agreement found on the next steps tab of your apply.berkelee.edu portal, as well as payment. If you haven't already requested housing, we're at a point in this cycle where we may not be able to accommodate new requests to stay on campus. So feel free to get in touch with our summer programs advising team for further information if you fall into this scenario. There are different payment methods available as well. Our payment page allows for credit or debit card payments, as well as e-check payments, which would be a direct withdrawal from your bank account. In addition to these, we do have alternatives available, such as paying by wire transfer in the case of students who may have international bank accounts. But if you are making a payment very close to the program start, and we're almost getting to this point, given that we're just over 2 weeks out from the start of Aspire 5 week, it's worth noting that payment by credit card is the best way to ensure your payment's timely arrival, as checks do take some time to process. And as we get close to the program, that's where it gets a little iffy. So payment by credit card is definitely encouraged as we inch towards the start of the program.
Thank you, Kathleen. And hello, everyone. We're going to transition now into an important part of the preparation for our summer programs, our health and safety overview. Our priority is ensuring that our students have a safe, enriching, and enjoyable experience during their time with us. First and foremost, we have our Magnus Health Portal, which should be familiar to you, as you should have received instructions on how to navigate it by now. If you haven't started on completing the required forms with the Magnus Health Portal, we encourage you to familiarize yourselves with them now and to get started them as soon as you're able. The first form in the portal is the Vital Health Record. This is a crucial document for us because it contains essential information that we might need in case of a medical emergency. Therefore, please take your time to fill this form out carefully and accurately. Next, we have the Student Code of Conduct and Liability Waiver. This form is an agreement that you or your student promise to abide by our rules, which helps us to maintain the respectful, creative environment that we pride ourselves on at Berkelee. Then we have two consent forms, the medical treatment consent for minors and the counseling consent for minors. These forms give us the authorization to provide life-saving medical care or mental health crisis stabilization services if the need arises. Finally, if your student is taking a prescribed substance, the authorization for medication administration form is required. This form equips our health team with the critical information they need to maintain a safe and supportive environment. One important note on that last point, if your student is bringing medication with them to the program, please ensure that it is in its original prescription bottle. We will not be able to accept it otherwise, and we want to make sure that everyone's medication is managed appropriately and safely. Again, if you haven't completed these forms yet, we encourage you to do so as soon as you're able to prevent any last-minute rush for outstanding information near the time of check-in and move-in for your program. All right, let's move on to another crucial topic for the summer, the latest updates regarding COVID-19. Recently, the declaration of emergency for COVID-19 has ended in the United States, which has led to some changes in our guidelines here at Berklee College of Music. Following the advice from our partners at Tufts Medical, along with the guidance provided by the Centers for Disease Control, we've adapted our requirements to the current situation. As of now, Berkelee no longer requires proof of COVID-19 vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test for you to participate in any campus activities, including our summer programs. This is a significant shift from past policies, and we hope that'll make the experience smoother and more enjoyable for everyone involved. However, while proof of COVID-19 immunization and testing is no longer required, we want to stress the importance of remaining vigilant in our fight against the virus. We strongly encourage all students to stay up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations and to independently test themselves for the virus before arriving on campus. This extra step can help to ensure the safety of all our students, faculty, and staff. If you happen to experience any COVID-19 symptoms or test positive for the virus, we kindly ask that you prioritize the health and safety of the Berkeley community by refraining from coming to campus. This way, we can all contribute to a safe, healthy, and enriching summer experience at Berkeley.
Aside from payments, housing, and health and safety, there are a few final items that we'll ask you to complete prior to your program. First of those is submitting a photo for your Berkeley ID card, which you can do via the Next Steps tab of your registration portal. We're asking that all participants complete this in advance of the program to ensure that your check-in process is as streamlined as it can be, as we'd like as much as possible to avoid long lines at check-in. If you do this in advance, you'll be able to receive your ID card upon arrival at check-in, and you will have the access you need to various buildings on campus where you have classes or where you might be staying for housing. Next, please review your OnePass credentials. Your OnePass credentials are your @berkeley.edu email address and password. And your usernames and password instructions have been sent to the student email address that you submitted on your application when you first applied for this program. Your OnePass credentials will be used to access your placement tests prior to the program and will allow you to access campus resources such as Wi-Fi, rehearsal rooms, and printers once you're here. Once you've set up your password to activate your OnePass credentials, please take your online placement tests at the link displayed here and in the chat. If somebody on our team can pop the link in there. This link will also be emailed to you. However, we strongly encourage you to go ahead and complete these assessments as soon as possible. It's important to note that these tests do not have any bearing on your ability to participate in this program, and they do not affect your grades. They're simply used to place you in the appropriate learning environment. If you don't know something on the test, that's okay. Everyone comes with different backgrounds, experiences, and levels of understanding, and we ultimately want to help you identify areas where we can help you learn and grow in your classes while you're here. Additionally, we'll be using an app called Cvent Events for each of our programs this summer. This is an app that we'll be sharing access to a few days before your program, and we'll ask you to download prior to arriving on campus. You'll be able to use the app to connect with other participants in this program and also view the most up-to-date information about the timing and location of specific general events for your program. We are excited that you'll be able to use this app to navigate the program and the Berkeley campus, so keep an eye out for more information on this. Again, 2 to 3 days prior to the start of the program. Please note that the Cvent Events app is used for general event scheduling, and you will also receive individual schedules on the first Tuesday of the program. I also want to make mention of our accessibility resources. If you need academic, housing, and/or dietary accommodations, you'll want to make your request, including submitting any relevant documentation in advance. Next, I'd like to discuss what to expect when you arrive to check in for the program. First, you'll report to your check-in location. Male identifying students will report to 150 Massachusetts Avenue. Female identifying students will report to 160 Massachusetts Avenue. When you arrive, our team will assess your health and payment requirements, and if there are any outstanding items, you will need to work with the summer programs team member to resolve those items prior to being able to check in and start the program. Once your health and payment requirements have been approved, you will be checked in for the program and assigned a residence hall room and key, if you have chosen to stay on campus. Checked-in students will also be able to pick up their ID cards at this time, which will grant you building access and will allow you to scan into the dining hall with your meal plan if you are a residential student. Once you've checked in, please refer to the schedule of events published in the Cvent Events app so you can participate in and get the most out of your welcome weekend. All
right, so program check-in for international students. First of all, just to reiterate information that international students should have been receiving since the point of registration, an F1 student visa is required for participation in this program due to the rigor, the eligibility to earn college credit, several other items kind of put it over the threshold for being able to participate in tourist status or on an ESTA waiver. We sometimes get some questions about that. So once again, F1 student visa required. Entry in tourist status is not valid for this program. It would be illegal to fully participate in Aspire 5 week if you enter the US in tourist status. So that said, international students attending Aspire do need to bring all their I-20 and F1 visa documentation with them to check in. We do advise packing these documents in your luggage. The reason for that, and by luggage, we mean carry-on luggage, because you may be requested to present them to an immigration officer at the port of entry. They should not be in your checked luggage. So again, bring them with you on the plane in your carry-on luggage, because they may be requested for review by the immigration officer. We'll also review them at check-in, as we're required to report your arrival to campus to the US government. So the documents for you to bring to check-in with you when you arrive to Berkelee's campus, we request that you bring your completed I-20 request packet that you had submitted to us in order to receive the I-20 form, as well as any supporting documentations like the biographical page of your passport, funding documentation. We want to make sure that you have everything. If any questions come up during check-in about your status, we may refer to them. We'd also need to ask you to bring your passport with you to check in. We do need to verify your visa in your passport as well as your entry status. So we'd be looking at your port of entry stamp, or in the absence of a port of entry stamp, because some airports are no longer stamping people's passports when they enter the US, we'd be pulling up your electronic I-94 form that the government reports your arrival. And so we'd be viewing that to make sure that you were admitted to the US in F1 status, so that everything is legal study-wise for you. Those are the requirements specific to international students on documentation to bring. And then just to wrap up the check-in piece, completing your program requirements prior to your arrival to campus is absolutely critical to being able to start your program activities on time. So the different items that we reviewed throughout this session are important for you to follow. If you are missing any of them, if any of them are submitted late, it might result in a delay for you at check-in. That delay could be minor, but at worst it could be significant. And we would very much like for everyone to have a positive, streamlined check-in experience. And so we're asking you to work on these items now ahead of time. One item in particular is the Magnus Health portal. As those submissions do need to be reviewed and approved typically by a nurse with Magnus Health. And so we ask that you submit those in particular in advance to allow for submission review, any corrections or updates to be made that may be requested of you in the case that a submission is rejected for whatever reason. We ask that you aim to have your pre-program requirements submitted 2 weeks prior to the start of the program, which would be this upcoming Saturday or so. So that's important to keep in mind.
Next, I'd like to take a moment to review the schedule of events for the welcome weekend for this program. Also in the chat, I am putting a link where you can also find this information in our Help Center online. So we'll continue to update this schedule as we move closer to the start of the program. Generally on the Saturday of welcome weekend, residential students are able to check in anytime between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. And students who are commuting to the program will be able to check in anytime between noon and 4:00 p.m. So as I mentioned before, male identifying students will report to 150 Massachusetts Avenue, and female identifying students will report to 160 Massachusetts Avenue. Throughout the day, there are a variety of events that are going on, such as the parent reception that takes place in the dining hall here on campus. There are also 2 Meet the Director meetings that take place. This is an orientation session for you. 1, so you know who the program directors are, and 2, so you know in more detail how the program will run and what the expectations are of you. If you are a residential student, there's a housing meeting in the evening, and then that Saturday will be capped off with some jam sessions around campus. So I really strongly encourage you to get here on campus, check in for the program, and take advantage of these opportunities to get to know the campus, get to know the staff and faculty here, and get to know your fellow classmates as well. So Welcome Weekend continues on Sunday, July 9th. And in the morning, we will continue to check in students who either couldn't arrive on Saturday, or if they had check-in requirements that needed to be resolved, if you needed to go take care of something and then come back to have those reassessed so we can check you in. Our team will be available for you at 160 Massachusetts Avenue from 9 o'clock to 2 p.m. Also throughout that day, there are placement auditions. And so those are your auditions to make sure that we're placing you at the appropriate performance level in your performance classes. So those would be your ensembles, making sure that you're with other players who are at a similar ability level as you. There are also a variety of special ensembles that anyone can audition for. So you'll have your primary ensemble on your schedule, and if you audition for and are placed in a special ensemble, then that will be added as an additional ensemble to your schedule as well. So the Help Center article that I linked to in the chat here has more information on where and when throughout the day you can expect to be able to audition, both for your placement auditions and for your special ensembles. That evening, there will also be a 5-week carnival, which is just a celebratory event in the dining hall, typically while you're eating your dinner, with different games and activities going on, again, to try to help you get to know people, meet your classmates, and get comfortable with your new environment here at Berkelee. And then lastly, on that Sunday evening, we cap off that day with a welcome concert in the Berkelee Performance Center. So next, I'd like to discuss what you can expect academically while you're here. Aspire 5 Week is meant to replicate a true Berklee College of Music undergrad experience. You have selected one principal instrument that also includes voice to study during the program. You selected that when you registered for the program initially. Your instructors are members of Berklee's world-class faculty and a mix of private instruction, instrumental labs, ensembles, theory, performance, and musicianship training is available to you and part of your course schedule. While your classes are designed to challenge you and expand your musical skill set, your course load will be appropriate for your abilities. I also want to point out that classes generally take place between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. and are tailored to your musical interest and experience levels. The program culminates with a final week of concerts where you'll perform for faculty, fellow students, family, and friends. Students also take electives during the program. These courses give students the opportunity to learn more about an area that interests them in a class that meets once a week for 2 hours. Students will receive one elective from the preferences they identified when registering. Students may also choose to receive one additional optional elective. I'd also like to point out that Aspire students who receive a grade of B or higher in their core classes will receive 3 college credits upon completion of this program.
As we begin to wrap up, I want to cover some critical information about the move-out details for Aspire. This slide lists the move-out date and times for the program, which can also be found on the Aspire 5-week webpage at summer.berkelee.edu. It's important that all of your belongings are cleared out of your residence hall room no later than the published checkout time. Our staff will begin checking rooms promptly at that listed time, so your cooperation is essential in this process. The schedule for Aspire is designed so that program activities will end well before the listed move-out time, and this will give you enough time to return to your residence hall rooms to pack up your belongings.
Okay, and with that, we can wrap up our presentation portion of today's webinar and transition into our question and answer session. A big thank you to Bill, Kathleen, Lee, and Vesela for joining us today. If you haven't already, please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen to submit any questions you might have. Our members of the advising team is answering questions behind the scenes, and we'll be pulling a handful of questions to answer live as well. We'll go ahead and get that started now. Let me see here. Okay. First question here is, if your child is late to a class or is a no-show, what is the attendance policy?
I can take that one. Attendance is something that we do take seriously and track very closely during Aspire. There is a dedicated attendance manager to Aspire who will be getting reports back regularly from the professors to ensure that your child is attending class. Your child does not attend a classroom. This is a class. The attendance manager will be following up with scheduling a meeting with your child to ensure that whatever barriers exist to them being able to make it to class can be removed, accommodated, or if we need to make some type of adjustment or change to things, we'll meet with them to work to figure that out. But attendance class is expected and required, and we will have the staff there dedicated to tracking this and to helping out with the challenges that might rise related to attendance.
Thank you so much, Lee. My next question here, the student says, I have seen some sources stating that students will have the opportunity to audition for the school at the end of the 5 weeks. Where can I find more information / details about this?
So more information is forthcoming on that. That will be published online at a future date.
But can you confirm, so will students have the opportunity to audition for the undergraduate program at the end of the Aspire program?
Yes, they will have the opportunity to sign up for auditions for undergrad while they're here. Yes.
Okay.
I'm also gonna put into the chat, there is some preliminary information available on the web that we can share about this if you'd like to start taking a look. But as Bill mentioned, the additional information will be forthcoming. There's generally a session that's led by admissions staff that provide an overview, a preview of what the audition process will look like so that you can prepare and feel more comfortable going into the actual audition and interview when it does happen, should you choose to sign up. So just putting it into the chat in a sec here, but Angel, you can continue on.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. The next question here is, how does the program accommodate those playing piano? Is scheduling, scheduling time with the instrument?
We have practice facilities in the residence halls and throughout the campus in which they're welcome to reserve or to use to practice piano. Additionally, I mean, if they have access to a keyboard and headphones that they can use in their own room, that's certainly an option as well too. But there are dedicated piano practice rooms throughout the campus.
Thank you, Lee. Okay. This one is related to the final performances. They say, I might have missed this in the help pages, but is there any specific attire you would like participants to bring for their final performances?
For your final performances, I would recommend wearing something that you are comfortable in, that you feel represents you well. while you're on stage. So there's no formal dress code while you're here. But in general, it's worth noting that Boston does get pretty hot in the summer, especially throughout July. It's been pretty rainy recently, so you'll want to be prepared for a few different types of weather while you're here. It gets very warm. It does rain occasionally, and those days tend to be cooler. But for your performances specifically, there's no dress code, and you'll just want to dress comfortably and wear something that that represents yourself well.
Thank you, Bill. My next question here is, do vocal students have to do the assessment link?
Yes, so the I'm going to answer a couple questions that I've seen come up in the Q&A here about this. So first of all, yes, vocalists are also required to complete these assessments. For vocalists, your instrument is your voice. So that's how we think of vocalists here at Berkelee. And so for the placement assessments, those are written tests that you'll take online, and those will help us determine your experience and ability levels with ear training and musicianship, and also your understanding of music theory as well. The placement audition that takes place while you're here is separate from those two tests. So those two tests are what you need to take ahead of time before you get here on campus, so you're placed in the right academic level for your courses. The placement test is for your performance classes, to make sure that you are placed with other students who are at a similar performance level as you. So we often see students come with different levels of experience, where some students have a lot of performance experience, but maybe not as much experience learning theory. And we want to make sure that the students are adequately challenged in both of those environments, an academic environment and the performance environment. So that's why we have those assessments split out a little bit differently.
And Bill, if I can jump in for just a second.
Sure.
We will also like to test your ability to sight read, and that is actually during the audition for your ensemble assessment. So don't worry about it. Those are separate classes. So you may be an amazing, amazing performer, and we'll assess that. In the same audition, we'll assess your sight reading, and we'll place you in the appropriate class for that. That is separate from your understanding of theory, and that is separate from your understanding of musicianship. So our goal here is to find the exact perfect spot for you, so that you can grow in those 5 weeks.
Thank you so much, Bill and Vesela. Kind of segueing pivoting off a similar topic related to vocal principals attending Aspire. One student asked, my principal instrument is voice. Should I buy a microphone at the Berkelee bookstore, as well as all of the other supplies?
So you're welcome to buy a microphone once you get here. The bookstore is not going to have one, but the Guitar Center is right across the street from Berkelee. In addition to a microphone, we also ask that you bring an XLR cable. These two things will enable you to be heard in all of your classes. I wouldn't count on using a cable that's in the room, because it may not be there, it may be broken. So, but both of those things you can either purchase at Guitar Center here on campus, or you can bring along with you from home.
Follow-up question, what's a go-to microphone for vocalists?
That's a really good question. That's a very personal preference. Some of the SM58 has been usually a go-to, but honestly, this is the kind of research you might want to do with other vocalists. And yeah.
Yeah, I think SM58 or SM48 are pretty affordable, at least and always offered at the Guitar Center. But yeah, it's up to personal preference. I'm going up to the next question. This one's more housing related. When can we know which dormitory we live in? I have paid the housing fee.
So the plan for the residence halls at this point, and I should preempt this with a bit of a warning that they could be subject to change, but the plan at this point is to house the male identifying under 18 students for Aspire in 150 Massachusetts Avenue, the female identifying under 18 students in 160 Massachusetts Avenue, and anyone who's 18 and older in 270 Commonwealth. Again, the housing is very tight right now, and our bed space is very limited for Aspire, so we may need to do some shifting around, so that could change. But that is the plan for housing at this point. And if there's any questions there around roommates and room assignments themselves are done after the point of check-in. So once you have checked in and you're good to go, that's when we do the housing assignments as well.
Thank you, Lee. And a follow-up to that question, just a little add-on. Are the dormitories single, double occupancy?
So the dormitories range in size. They're anywhere from, they can be anywhere from 2 to up to 5 people, and depending upon the size of the room. Most will be 3, some 4, and some, yeah, they can range in size from doubles all the way up to quintuples, with most being, I would say, triples, maybe a few quads. So I would just say that it's likely to anticipate that you'll have at least 2 roommates, more than likely during your time here at Aspire.
Okay. And next question would be, are prescriptions to be turned in to be administered, or can students self-administer?
If it is a controlled substance, then they are required to turn that into the nurse. We do require that anything that is a controlled substance needs to be held on to administered by the nurse. Otherwise, if it's something that you could use help with remembering to administer, the nursing team is happy to help out with that as well too. If it is not a controlled substance, then you're welcome to self-administer as you see fit.
Thank you so much, Lee. Let's give you a break, and I'll go ahead and ask the next question. Who will be the best point of contacts for parents when our child attends the camp, or the program, really? This is the language I'm reading off the question. Writing the general, yeah. What's the best email to reach out to during the attendance of Aspire?
So if you have general questions, you can contact summer@berkelee.edu. And Lee, is there a separate email that people can contact as well?
Yep. For on-the-ground campus needs, things that are needs related to, say, the residence halls or anything that's kind of happening post check-in. We are working right now to get an email address set up specific to those needs, and that email address is summercampuslife@berkelee.edu.
I would add that in addition to those contacts, in the very unfortunate event that there's some sort of emergency situation that's outside of business hours, Berkelee does also have 24/7 public safety. Again, those would be more urgent situations that would be appropriate to contact that outside of business hours, but it's available too.
Thank you. Our next question here, it says, does Berkelee include health insurance during the program? Is it included in the cost of tuition?
So no, Berkelee does not include health insurance as part of the tuition. If students are looking for health insurance or traveler's health insurance while they're here, you'll need to obtain that independently prior to arriving on campus.
Thank you. Another, someone asks here, 2 textbooks are required. How do we acquire them?
Good question. So the textbooks can be obtained from the Berkelee bookstore, which is right here on campus. So you can plan to make that part of your check-in weekend. After you arrive and you check in for the program, you move into your dorm. There are those events scheduled throughout the weekend, but you also have some time to move around the campus and one, get to know your new environment, and also two, stop by the bookstore and pick up your books, any supplies that you need. The bookstore also has like sheet music, blank sheet music, and also published sheet music from established artists, and Berkeley and Boston Conservatory gear and t-shirts and all of that kind of stuff too.
Thank you so much, Bill. The next question here is, what does the photo ID need to look like, their photo ID submission? Are there any requirements like a white background, no glasses, etc.?
Yeah, so good question again. So the ID photo, when you submit that, there are specific guidelines on that on the form where you are submitting the photo. Generally, it should be a neutral background, and it should be a headshot from the shoulders up, preferably without any logos on your shirts, no sunglasses, no hats. This is the photo that goes on your ID while you're here. So it's important that that we're able to see clearly who you are on your card, and that that it matches who you are in real life too.
Okay, thank you, Bill. This one is pretty a straightforward answer, but I'll ask it anyways, just in case anybody attending is not aware. When will the placement assessment links be sent out?
So the placement assessment links, that link has been included in the chat. I can put that in there again for anybody else who missed it the first time. Give me one moment here. But you'll also be sent an email that has this link too. But you don't need to wait for the email. If you've gotten your OnePass credentials email and you've set up your credentials, then you are now able to go ahead and take your placement assessment. But you do need to set up your OnePass credentials first prior to being able to go in and taking the assessment.
Thank you, Bill. Here. Okay. This student asks, are symbols required for drummers?
So let me take this one because I misspoke earlier when answering somebody's question. So I apologize. Drummers do not need to bring cymbals with them. So there will be cymbals here, but drummers should plan on bringing sticks and mallets, those sorts of things to perform.
So Bill, I have a slightly even further information on that just arrived literally a couple of seconds ago.
Great.
So all the ensemble rooms have cymbals that are locked in. So even if you brought your own cymbals, you will not be able to use them during your regular ensemble time unless you brought a light stand with you as well. For the final performances, for the concerts, you are actually allowed to use your own cymbals if you have them, because those are not locked in. So if you really, really love your cymbals and you're willing to fly with them, you're welcome to bring them. But again, keep in mind, you will not be able to use them during your classes, only during the performances at the end.
Thank you so much for clarifying, Vesela. That's really important to know. Here, hearkening back to some of the medication administration policy, this person asks, can students over 18 and over self-administer prescription medication, or do they need to have it dropped off at the nurse's office?
If it is a controlled substance, then it does need to be dropped off at the nurse's office, regardless of age. If it is not a controlled substance, then so long as they don't need any type of assistance with self-administering, they're welcome to self-administer.
Thank you, Lee. A follow-up question for you, more housing related. Are there laundry facilities located in the dorms?
Yep. Each residence hall area has at least one laundry facility. Some will have a laundry facility on each floor, designated laundry room on each floor, and others it might just be for the building, depending upon the size of the building that they're in. But there's plenty of laundry facilities throughout the campus that students are welcome to use during their time at Aspire.
Thank you. One student says that they have trouble signing in to the Magnus Health Portal. They didn't receive their credentials. Any advice?
Yes, so I can help with that. So Magnus credentials are sent to the parents if you are a minor student. So if you are the student, that's why you didn't receive the email yourself. So those credentials are sent to the parent email addresses that we receive on your initial registration form. If you're having trouble accessing Magnus, you can click on the having trouble logging in button on the Magnus login page. That's secure.magnushealthportal.com. And there are links on that page to either help you retrieve your username or reset your password if you need to.
Thank you, Bill. This student asks, do we need to prepare anything for our audition, or is it more of an interview?
So for your placement audition, they generally take 3 to 5 minutes. As Vesela was explaining earlier, we just want to get a sense of what your performance abilities are. So come prepared to play a short piece that you think best represents your performance abilities. And you'll be asked to do some sight reading and some things that might take you out of your comfort zone a little bit. But again, it's just to make sure that you're placed at an appropriate performance level.
There are 2 other parts to the audition that are very important. We will ask you to confirm what style you want to focus on. I know that a lot of you probably have multiple styles you're interested in, as we all are, but we don't want to focus on one style. So just kind of be prepared to choose one of the 4 styles that we offer. And in addition to that, there's a number of specialty ensembles that are not by audition, but by interest. So you will also be asked whether you're interested in doing some hip hop or heavy metal, or there's very specific things so it's partly an interview and partly an audition. You'll definitely play. And for specific instruments, you may be asked to improvise a little bit, especially if you're choosing jazz as your style. Or if you're a guitar player or piano player, we'll ask you to comp a little bit and show us how you can deal with comping. So based on your instrument, there's different things we'll ask you to do. So a little bit of a prepared piece, and then just keep an open mind and have fun, and you'll be okay.
Thank you so much, Vesela. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next question. Could you please speak to lunch options for students?
So students who are staying on campus and the residence halls, part of the cost of your residence hall experience is a meal plan as well. So your ID card has your meal plan on there too. So when you go to the cafeteria, there are a lot of dining options. And a lot of options if you have special dietary needs too, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, have a gluten-free diet, we are able to accommodate you. And the menu changes every day. So if you do have more specific dietary needs, though, I do recommend reaching out to accessibility resources just to make sure that your needs are met while you're here on campus.
Thank you, Bill. Are commuter students allowed to have meals on campus in the Berkelee CAF? In what activities can they participate during the introduction weekend?
Yeah, so commuter students are able to eat in the cafeteria. You would just need to pay at the door, either by credit card or cash. The cost is the same per meal for commuters and for residential students. And yeah, you just show up to the CAF and you can eat with everybody else. And then for program activities, commuters are welcome to join any activities that are taking place as part of the program. There may be some like residential, like evening activities and things like that, that are led by the RAs, but only residential students are allowed in their own res halls. So if you're a commuter, there are other events going on in the evenings though too, and those are typically like the jam sessions, open mic nights, things like that. So there are always things going on around campus, and not only are you welcome to join them, but we strongly encourage you to join us for those too.
I want to just echo what Bill said and add on a couple of details myself. If you are a commuter student, and in terms of dining hall access, just the expectation is that you pay in order to access the dining hall. Not sure the exact price. I know it's roughly somewhere between $11 and $15 roughly per meal. So you pay with a debit card, or there are options which you can learn about after you check in to load some value onto the Berkelee student ID card that you can use to pay for access to the dining hall as well. And in terms of activities for commuter students during Aspire, my team is working very hard right now to plan a variety of different activities to appeal to a variety of students who are attending Aspire. Those might look like anything from, say, coffee hours. There is a Red Sox game tentatively that we are planning on going to. There's museum outings planned, and other sorts of activities like that designed to appeal to a wide variety of students and a wide variety of interests. And those are open to both residential and commuter students.
Thank you both. Let me see here to pivot my next question. This is a common one. Parking recommendations for check-in day.
So yeah, that's a great question. Since Berkelee is a college in an urban environment, we don't have our own parking lots here at Berkelee. However, there is street parking nearby. There are parking garages nearby. There's one right next to Berkelee called Patriot Parking. There's another one called Dalton Street Garage, and there's another one under the Prudential Center. That's another parking garage there as well. We will have some spaces blocked off on Belvedere Street, on Massachusetts Avenue, and on Commonwealth Avenue. But those are not for long-term parking. Those are more so if you are moving into one of the dorms, you're able to pull over, unload your belongings, and then whoever's driving would go park from there while everybody else in your party is moving into the dorm.
Okay, Bill. I have another question that you might be able to help with. This student asks, I'm having trouble with my immunization forms for vaccines. Is this completely important?
Yes. So thank you for asking that. The immunization requirements, they are true requirements, and they are something that all students have to meet prior to being able to check in and start their program. So if you arrive to check in and you have outstanding immunization requirements, either meaning we haven't received them yet, or maybe you're missing some doses of certain immunizations, those do need to be resolved prior to your ability to check in and participate in the program. But again, that's why we encourage you to submit all of your forms early, as soon as possible, because we do need to review your submissions and let you know if anything else needs to be done prior to your arrival here on campus. So there are, if you're like in the middle of an immunization series, then we can count you as being temporarily compliant. But generally, the students who are marked as temporarily compliant are demonstrating that they are part of a series of vaccinations that they're in the middle of getting. So a lot of times that's accompanied by a doctor's note, and that can help too. If you are having trouble locating immunization records, there are certain immunizations, and this is written out specifically on in the immunization packet. You can also have blood titer tests done for certain immunizations, and those are tests that will look for the appropriate antibodies in your blood to show immunity to those specific diseases.
Thank you very much, Bill. We're nearing the end of this presentation and Q&A portion. We have time for maybe a couple more questions. I just want to be mindful of the time. Here's a quick one. Are practice rooms open 24/7?
It depends upon the location. If you are within your residence halls and you want to go to the practice rooms there, I do want to add the note that we do have curfew check. So you are expected to be within your residence hall room at the time of curfew check if you're under 18. But after curfew check is completed, you are welcome to use the practice rooms within your residence halls. And so essentially there are options for practicing at any hour of the day throughout campus.
Thank you, Lee. This is kind of a speed round. I'm going to try to get through as many as I can. Do you get to choose the time you take your classes?
It really depends on the classes you're taking. All of our theory classes, all of them happen at 9 a.m. There's absolutely no way around that. Musicianship classes all happen at 11 and 12 a.m. So those are what we call block schedule, meaning every single student takes them at the same time. Everything else is pretty open. You don't really get to pick your time up front, but the first 2 weeks of the program is what we call ed drop period. So you have some ability to change the time for some of your classes. Again, musicianship and theory, non-negotiable. Your private lessons, probably non-negotiable, but some of your other classes, you have a little bit of wiggle room. You can come to the 5-week office and talk to one of our scheduling staff, and they will help you craft your schedule as close to what your desired schedule is as possible.
Thank you very much, Vesela. I think we have time just for one more question. Here, this one, I want to do some, just wanted to finish with some program related things. How exactly does the sight reading portion of the audition work? This person's a vocalist in particular, but it might, just in general, how might it work, the sight reading portion of the audition for anybody?
So the auditioner will ask you what your comfort level is, and you can self-assess and say, I am not very, if you absolutely have never read music before, which is totally fine, then you can just say, I don't feel comfortable with sight reading, and we'll place you in the first level so that you can start working on that skill.
Thank you so much, Vesela. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up for today's session. This is going to conclude our webinar on next steps for Aspire students. Again, a big thank you to Lee, Bill, Kathleen, as well as Vesela for serving as panelists today. And a huge thank you to the advising team for hopping in and answering questions as well in the chat. We hope that you found this session helpful and informative. If you still have questions, please feel free to check out our help center at help.summer.berkelee.edu or email us at summer@berkelee.edu. We try to get back to students and parents as quickly as we can. And we aim for a 3 to 5 business day time frame. With that, I'll go ahead and conclude our time together here this afternoon. Again, a recording of this session will be sent out within a week's time. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you at all at Berkelee this summer.